Are you about to start an upholstery project on a chair like this, or are you in the midst of an upholstery project and you're nervous about making the relief cuts on your piece? Well, don't go anywhere, because I'm about to show you how to practice making these relief cuts without any fear of wasting fabric or doing it wrong. I'm actually going to leave this dark blue fabric on here because it'll make for a good background color to a white muslin fabric that we're going to use to practice. What you're going to need for this is a piece of cheap muslin fabric, or you could use an old bed sheet or just some scrap fabric that you've got laying around. It just has to be big enough to basically upholster this whole seat. So grab your fabric and let's do it. So I've got my piece cut, and we'll pretend like it's nice and square, and I actually took time and cut it properly. I'm gonna find my centers and mark my centers like I would do on a normal upholstery project. Putting a notch in the center so I know that I have the piece of fabric running straight and square on my chair. Find the middle and line this up into the middle, and do the same on the back. This is just a piece of inexpensive muslin that I'm using, but like I said, you could use any kind of scrap of fabric to do this. Get it positioned on your chair the way it needs to be, and then with your staple gun, we're gonna go ahead and put a temporary staple in the front, in the back, and one on each side. And when I say a temporary staple, what I mean is when you put in a staple normally, you put your staple gun flat against your piece so that your staple goes in all the way. But when you're doing a temporary staple, you're going to tilt your staple gun to the side a little bit so that only one leg of the staple goes in and the other leg of the staple sticks out, so that if you need to take that staple back out, you can grab that leg of the staple that's sticking out partially easily. You don't have to try to dig it out with your staple puller. So let's put one temporary staple here and a temporary staple in the back. That didn't stay. One on each side. Now we're ready to go ahead and make our relief cuts. And this is the beauty of this, is this is just a practice piece. So now we can take a piece of muslin like this and we can cut it as many times as we need to practice this. And we can then take this piece off and flip it around and use it again and practice these cuts again. This is definitely the most daunting part of any upholstery project, is doing the relief cuts. When I was in school for upholstery, when I was taking upholstery classes, we actually weren't even allowed to make relief cuts in the class. We were allowed to place our furniture and get it in place and then temporary staple it, and then our instructor would come around and make all the relief cuts for us, which got annoying to me, but yeah. Okay, this, particularly with this style of chair, this relief cut can be a little bit daunting. And you want to make sure that you have your fabric fastened with at least a staple in the front and a staple in the back before you start doing any relief cuts, because you don't want your fabric to be shifting around while you're making your cuts. Let's say you make this cut here, then you go to make that cut, and somehow your fabric gets shifted, and then you make that cut, and now this cut no longer works on this arm because it shifted a little bit and you made that cut. Yeah, so you want to make sure your fabric is secured before you start making your relief cuts. So now we can fold this back perpendicular to that arm and cut into the fabric down to the arm, and then we can make our little V-notch. And then fold that under, and let's see how we did. Need to go a little bit further. Okay, there we go. And then you know that you can get around that arm with that cut. And then if you need to, what you can do is you can take this piece of muslin off and sort of use it as a pattern for your fabric. That is a super easy way to practice your relief cuts. If you are just a beginner upholsterer, that's the way to do it. And the way I do it is I fold my fabric over basically perpendicular so that my fold is like this. Because I have it fastened here, I won't be able to get it completely perpendicular because it's pulling here, so that means I'm gonna have to cut from here into this corner. And I always cut a little bit smaller or a little bit less than I think and try it, and then I can go a little bit more if I need to. See how you get a little bird's mouth there? You know, let's see if I got enough. I need to go just a little bit further. There we go. You can't really pull a lot with muslin because it'll just continue to rip. But that's how you can do it. And then we can take this back off and you'll be able to see really what your cut looks like, and you'll know in the future better how to make your cuts. So you see how that it always ends up looking like a bird claw to me. So that's the gist of it. Now I can take this off and I can just flip it over and fasten it front to back again, and then make those cuts again. Now I can fasten here and fasten back there, and then do it once more. If you are somebody who is interested in learning how to do upholstery, I have an Upholstery Basics for Beginners course. It shows how to reupholster a chair very similar to this, a Louis style chair, and it is very detailed, very comprehensive. So if you're interested in that course, you can click on the link for it in the description box below, and I'll see you over there.